Hello, hello, and thank you for watching my video. We're going to be covering the Necromancer Conditionmancer guide today. The new patch for Build Boys just came out. Excuse me for forgetting the patch number. It's going to be an annotation on the screen right here. And I decided with the meta being completely shattered, no one really knowing what to do, the Necromancer's kind of floating around there saying, well, we had a good idea of what he did, now let's try to figure out what he does. I might as well enlighten you guys. Now, this is a Conditionmancer, meaning we're going to be covering a PvE build covering, obviously, conditions. It's a sustain type damage as opposed to a power type damage that you would find with like a glass cannon or something. So it's supposed to be, to kind of keep a main idea, the whole build is focused around dealing sustained damage via conditions along with survivability, because if you die, then your DPS drops to 0. And the entire point of a Conditionmancer is to constantly keep putting conditions on people. So those are that's what we're going to be focusing on. And yeah, so I figured that I might as well start off with explaining that I used to use a lot of builds designed by Nemesis. Many of you guys may know him. He's part of the, excuse me, I don't know what my character's doing there. There we go. Used to be using a lot of guides from Nemesis, aka his YouTube channel is I Am One, I Am Legion. And he did all of the math. He did a lot of work working on Necromancers, and I absolutely worship him at his feet. And so I kind of took a lot of his ideas, and I used the research that he put into the class to kind of come up with this idea. A lot of things have changed with the new Necromancer patch, so I figured I'd go ahead and start over these. So they are kind of based around his research. However, I have altered them just a tiny bit so that they kind of reflect the survivability that a Conditionmancer should have in PvE. Now keep in mind, this is my own opinion. This is something that I found to try and help a lot of the Necromancers out there who are struggling to find a new place in the new meta. There have been a lot of buffs to the Necromancer, which I appreciate, and there have been a lot of drawbacks that they've taken away. For example, Doomfire is now part of Soul Reaping, which is fine. And then they're also going to be coming out with Heart of Thorns. They're also going to be coming out with the Reaper Elite trait line, or whatever that's supposed to, the specialization, excuse me. So I will make an update when that comes. So let's, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the build. I figured we might as well start off with the weapons. Where do we do that? Build. Okay, so Conditionmancer, obviously we're going to be applying a lot of conditions. So if you look through it, that's a condition, that's damage, that's a little more conditions. So the main axe, it's not exactly what we're looking for. We don't need vulnerability because that it just increases our damage. Necrotic Slash, Siphon, Immobilize, there's one condition, but again, it's not exactly what we're looking for. Staff is really good. We're going to use this as an offhand weapon, and then obviously your two underwater weapons. So that leaves us with the Scepter. The Scepter, whenever you auto-attack, you're putting bleeding damage on the target. And then on your third auto-attack, if I can find that, I'm not sure how to actually make that pop up. There you go. Putrid Curse is your third auto-attack chain. You poison the target. So that's really nice right off the bat. Then we've got our Grasping Dead, which is a AoE place target. We're going to be putting 3 stacks of bleeding on the target for 19.5 seconds with Cripple, which will slow our enemies down, which means we can put more AoEs down, which means they're going to take more and more condition damage. And then Feast of Corruption. This one's a little interesting. It does damage based on the number of conditions on the target, and it gains life force for each of the conditions. So it is going to be our power or burst, quote unquote. You can't see me, I'm doing air quotes, for the Necromancer, Conditionmancer, because really there is no burst. And then we go into the offhand. I decided to go with the offhand dagger because that gives us a way to return conditions to targets. Great. There go the dogs. Don't worry, I'll wait. Are we done? Okay. Back to what I was saying. It's a way to put conditions on us and make sure that we can put them on the flow. Now, on the foe, excuse me, not the flow. Flow? What is flow doing? Progressive, get out of here. So it puts blindness on the target, and it transfers 3 conditions on a successful attack. There is a perk later on in the Curses tree that absolutely blows my mind. It is so satisfying. And we're going to go over that in a little bit. So we're going to go with Deathly Swarm, and then our 5 ability, Enfeebling Blood, inflicts weakness and bleeding on foes, and it's an AoE. So that'll put even more bleeding. So already, if you look at our first 5 skills from our weapon slots, we're doing lots and lots of conditions. And that's known, everyone knows Scepter Dagger is one of the most effective tools for Conditionmancers to use. And with our offhand weapon, we're going to be using the staff with marks, and that's really helpful. Death Shroud, it's okay. Really, you're going to be using it for a lot of support, survivability, sustain, tanking. The Reaper's Mark. Oops, that's not what I was trying to do. This is what I was trying to do. The Reaper's Mark, Doom. It helps with fear, so if you want to do it like a Terramancer, that's good. Tainted Shackles are always really nice, now that they have the Immobilize. Dark Path adds bleeding and chills, which is part of the perks that we're going to choose, so that's okay. Really, I only use it when I need to put extra damage or more support or heal or something like that. Now let's go into the actual specializations. Now that they added specializations to the game, people are kind of confused as to what they should take. So if you look at what I've got Curses, I've got Spite, and this is an interesting choice. A couple of my friends looked at me kind of weird when I chose Death Magic, and I'll explain the reasoning on that. But first off, let's go to Curses. Critical hits have a chance to cause bleeding, increases bleeding duration. Now the gear that I'm running, the actual equipment that I'm running, is Precision, Toughness, Condi damage. It's the Rabbit gear. So with our bonus Precision, let's see, well, we're in a level 30 instance right now, but I can move to level 80 in a minute just because this place doesn't really look where like a Necromancer would live. We're going to have a lot of Precision, meaning we're going to be critting a lot. Well, critting doesn't really do extra damage for our conditions, so now we're going to be putting bleed on the target, which will put even more bleeding on the target, which means we're doing more and more damage. So that's always nice. That's a really good minor trait. Let's see. Let's look at the first traits here. Terrifying Descent. Again, falling damage for fear. We're not a Terramancer, and I don't know why we'd be taking falling damage. Unless we're like ambushing someone in World v World. That's kind of funny, I guess. Just have a whole bunch of Necromancers jump from above. Plague Signet, when your conditions meet the threshold, your next critical hit will cause Plague Signet, and it sends your conditions to a foe. Again, we're going to be putting conditions on ourselves, but not so much that the threshold will really matter. We want to put our conditions on a foe early, and then that will do more and more damage. We put our conditions on us early. So again, this is okay. This is definitely a choice if you wanted to take it. I decided to go with Chilling Darkness. Blinding a target will also apply Chill, which Chill is minus 66% recharge rate, minus 66% movement speed. Looking at our skills, we've got 1 blind, which sends all of our conditions, well, 3 of our conditions on us to a target, blinds them and chills them, meaning they can't get rid of it for 66% or 66 seconds. Or if they do cleanse conditions, then they have a minus 66% recharge speed on that. We have Well of Darkness, which blindness every single time it pulses, meaning chilled every single time it pulses. That's kind of ridiculous. And where is it? Oh, I suppose that's not really blind, but we'll go into something else in a minute. Yeah, so we have 2 blinds right off the bat, and then we also, with our Plague, when we activate our ultimate Plague, we've got 2, which blindness and chill. So we have 3 ways to constantly blind people, which will constantly apply chill. Well, except it's not really constant, but it's kind of ridiculous. So that's really, really good. Chilling Darkness is really, really good. Furious Demise, gain Fury when entering Death Shroud, which is nice because it just gives us a critical chance. Again, when you're critting, you put bleeding on people, so it just means your auto attack's actually worth something now when you're in Death Shroud. Let's look at these. So first we're going to look at Master of Corruption. Now, the abilities that I'm using, I have 4 corruption abilities, excuse me. Blood is Power, Epidemic, Plague, and Consume Conditions. So, already this helps us. Whenever we heal, we put... That's what I was smoking about. Whenever we heal, we are blinded. Which means that when we use Deathly Swarm, we send our conditions to an enemy, or when we use Putrid Mark, we send conditions to our enemy. Meaning we can send blindness to a foe whenever we heal. And which will, in turn, chill them. Torment, whenever we use power, Blood is Power, which we're going to follow Blood is Power immediately with Deathly Swarm. So we're using Bleeding, Torment, Blindness, Chill. Plus whatever other stuff we're stacking on them at the same time. And that's like a 2-button click, and it's kind of ridiculous. Again, we're going to use Epidemic to spread the conditions to AI enemies, which is kind of overpowered. That'll put weakness on them, and if we follow it up with Deathly Swarm, we're putting weakness on them now. And Plague Form, which, again, it just poisons us, so you can't really do anything about that. So this is a really kind of cool idea. And corruption skills inflict additional, reduces the recharge on corruption skills. So that's really good. I mean, we would use that just because we have all corruption skills. But looking at the other choices, Path of Corruption, Shroud 2, now additionally converts boons to conditions. This would be better if you're kind of going into like a PvP World v World, but again, I'm not really using Death Shroud as much as I should, so it's a choice. I wouldn't recommend it. Fear deals damage. Again, Terrormancer, that's a totally different build. We're not even worrying about Fear. Target the Weak increases critical hit for every single time. Critical hit chance for each condition on your foe. So every single time we put a condition on them, we get increased critical chance, which means we put more and more conditions on them, meaning they take more and more damage the lower their health is on. They take more damage the more conditions on them, which means the lower their health is, meaning they die faster the more you condition them. So that's really good. And then this one, Weakening Shroud. Bleed and weaken nearby foes, cast enfeebling when entering Shroud. Critical hits inflict weakness. It's good because critical hits inflict weakness, but again, we're not using Death Shroud, so we don't really need it. And it's whenever you enter Death Shroud, so it just puts bleeding. 2 bleeding on a target, that's okay. Parasitic Contagion, your percentage of your condition damage heals you. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be super tanky, yes, that's good, but again, with the death magic, we don't really need as much tanky as we could, and healing it's good for the Necromancer, but more if you were going for like a vampire build. So this one, while wielding a scepter, your condition damage is increased. Boom, instantly, right there, that's what you want. Conditions inflicted by scepter skills have increased durations, meaning not only is the damage of the condition increased, but it's also duration is increased, so you're dealing more damage longer. That's kind of crazy, and it's by 150 damage for 100% increased duration. That is kind of ridiculous. So all of these inflict bleeding for 2 seconds, inflict chilled for 2 seconds, inflict bleeding for 3¼ seconds, blah blah blah. All of that is increased by 100%, meaning you're dealing more damage with the same slots that are even better. So Lingering Curses is really good. So you're going to do like a weird Z thing here. Moving on to the Spite trait. People were kind of looking at this going, should I go Blood Magic? Should I go Soul Reaping? Should I go Spite? Oh, hi doggy. I went away from Blood Magic because there's a couple things in here that really turned me on. Not in a, well, I guess that is kind of in a perverted way. Jeez, I don't know what people are doing to those dogs. Shroud Skill 1 grants Might. It's okay. I mean, Shroud Skill 1, you just auto-attack, and the closer you are, the more damage you do. Now, Might increases condition damage, so that's okay, but again, you're going to be in Smite, excuse me. You're going to be in Shroud, gaining Might. So, your conditions will do more damage for a little bit. That's nice. I mean, it's just a sweet bonus. Let's look at the first trait here. Spiteful Talisman, deal increased damage to foes with no boons. Again, we're fighting AIs, and a lot of the bosses have boons on them, and you just can't get rid of them, so it's kind of worthless. Now, if you're fighting, like, with a Corrupt boon, if you had Corrupt boon instead of Blood is Power, that would be really good, but again, that's more of like a PvP build. I see no reason to take Corrupt boon in PvE. Consume conditions to gain health when you strike a foe below the threshold. That's nice because all of the conditions on you go away the lower health the enemy is. If the enemy's at 25% health, every time you hit them, you heal per condition, and you can, you remove the condition. The problem is you want those conditions on you so that you can send them to the foes, not so that you can gain health. And then this one is the one I chose, Bitter Chill. Chilling a foe inflicts vulnerability. So this is kind of ridiculous. Whenever you blind a foe, you inflict chill. That's what this does. Whenever you chill a foe, you inflict vulnerability. And this is the reason why a lot of people are confused about the Conditionmancer, because now all of the conditions interact with each other. So let's see. Whenever you heal, you blind yourself, which means you put vulnerability on yourself. Then let's say, actually, let's start from the very beginning. We bleed ourselves, and then we use Deathly Swarm. So we're going to send blindness to the enemy, so they're blinded, and now they're chilled. Does that make sense? So now they're chilled, and now that they're chilled, they take vulnerability. Vulnerability is cool because they take 3% incoming, 3% incoming condition damage. So every single time you stack, that's for 1 stack of vulnerability. And you can keep putting vulnerability on your target. So that's 1. We bleed ourselves and our foes, and then we send the bleeding, the blindness, the chilled, and the vulnerability to the foe. So now they're taking more damage from the bleeding, because you're putting vulnerability on them. And then we've got Well of Darkness. Every single time the well pulses, you put blindness on them, which means it puts chills on them, which means it puts vulnerability on them, which means all of the bleedings that you're doing with your auto-attacking while that well is pulsing does more and more and more damage. And then whenever you heal yourself, you put blindness on yourself, which puts chill on yourself, which puts vulnerability. I think that's how that works. And then you switch and use Putrid Mark, and it sends all 3 conditions to a foe, meaning now they're blinded, and they're chilled, and they're being applied vulnerability. So every single time you blind somebody, you send it to their person, and now they're blinded, chilled, and taking vulnerability, meaning they're taking more and more and more condition damage the more vulnerability they have on them, which means you're doing insane amounts of DPS than you would otherwise. And that's what I really, really like about this new Conditionmancer, how the conditions actually interact with each other. Alright, so that's kind of my orgasm for the video. Death's Embrace, it's a minor trait. Inflict vulnerability when you strike a foe below the health threshold. Deal more damage while downed. So that's always nice to have. They combine 2 traits there. I believe they combined, like, no, it wasn't Reaper's Might. Death Defied? I don't know. They took one of the ones from the Spite trait line and mixed it together with Death's Embrace. So whenever you inflict somebody below 33% health, they get more vulnerability, meaning your conditions do more damage, meaning they die faster the lower their health is. Okay, next trait, Chill of Death. Oh, Spinal Shivers. Cast Spinal Shivers on a foe when attacking them when their health is below the threshold. So below 50%, you cast Spinal Shivers, which is chill your target, and remove up to 3 boons, dealing extra damage based on the number of boons removed. I chose this one mostly for the chilled, because it works really well with Bitter Chill, meaning it goes to vulnerability. When they hit 50% health, even if it's with conditions, when their health hits 50%, every single auto attack, which would normally apply bleeding and poison, now applies chill and, well, I believe there's there's a 20-second cooldown. So every 20 seconds, you're applying chill and vulnerability. So you hit them, you apply chill, they now have vulnerability for 5 seconds, and then you cast like another well, which constantly puts vulnerability on them. So all of this bleeding stuff that you're putting on them from auto attacks now does more and more damage, and they're already at 33%, which means this kicks in, then they're at 20%, which means another thing kicks in, and they just die really quickly. The other choices that you have are Rending Shroud, which is constantly apply vulnerability to nearby foes while in Death Shroud. That is insanely good if we were going for a hybrid or a DPS build, where a damage build, or a power build, where you stack might on yourself and stack vulnerability on the enemies so that you constantly do more damage to them. You're getting higher, they're getting weaker. That would be good, but because we're doing conditions, we don't need this. We're not going to be in Shroud enough for this to actually take effect. And then the last choice that we have is Unholy Fervor. Reduces recharge of axe skills. I mean, we're not even using axe. So I decided to go with this. If you were going for a hybrid build, which I might do a video on, this would be better, but because we're not, we're going to be focusing on Chill of Death here. Alright, our next trait is Siphon Power. Gain might when you strike a foe below the 50% threshold. Again, Spite Tree is all about power and all about hybrid builds. Not that much involved with the Conditionmancer, but it helps, because it increases your 39 condition damage now. So Might does increase condition damage, meaning your condition damage will be doing more. They're taking more vulnerability. They're taking more Might. You're gaining more Might, so you're doing more damage the lower their health is. And then finally, Signet of Suffering. We're not using Signets. Don't even worry about it. Like, this doesn't even apply. Close to Death. Increased damage to enemies below the health threshold. I cannot talk today. The health threshold is 50%. The damage increases 20%. The lower their health, the more damage you do. Just flat. So that's nice. And then Unholy Feast. I saw the little icon here, and doesn't that look like a little fire thing? Like, that looks like fire to me, like a campfire. So I was like, oh, awesome! They moved Doomfire to the Spite Tree. No, Doomfire is Soul Reaping. There it is. It's Doomfire all the way over there. Too bad we're not using Soul Reaping. So, instead, oops. Oop, no, that's not what we want. We want this. So I thought this is it. It's Unholy Feast. Cripple nearby foes and convert their boons to conditions. Gain retaliation for each foe you strike. And it's whenever you enter Shroud. So, again, we're not using Shroud that much. So this one, increased damage. It's just a flat increase. That's always nice to have. Now, this is the one that I got a lot of my friends to look weird at. Death Magic. People kind of looked at me and were like, I don't know what you're smoking, but maybe you should reconsider. And I was like, no. Let me explain this. It actually makes sense. So Death Magic, as a lot of you know, is used for minions. Minions, blah, blah, blah. Minions, blah, blah, blah. Minions, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's not minions. Where's minions? Yeah, Death Nova. Minions die. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. So, minions. Everybody knows if you're going to go minions, you're going to go Death Magic. Now, a lot of people think Minionmancers, or what are they called? Yeah, Minionmancer, are overrated. They're cheap. They're used by noobs. They're actually really good, I will admit. They are probably better tanks than you would possibly think, because all your minions are taking damage and healing you at the same time, and Necromancers have the highest base health of any of the, what are they called? They're called the Scholar classes now. Any of the light armor classes. But let me explain this to you. So we'll go through this, and then I'll explain what my reasoning of why I chose it. So gain toughness while in Shroud. Again, whenever I go into Shroud, I'm doing it to tank because I'm about to die, or because I'm trying to support somebody, meaning I'm probably tanking. So this just helps. It's extra life on top of your regular life, and you have increased toughness, meaning you take less damage. So that helps. We're not using minions. Don't need to worry about Flesh of the Master. Shrouded removal. Lose a condition when you enter Shroud every few seconds while you remain in Shroud. That's nice, but we're using our conditions to send them to the foes. This would be good in like a PvE PvP, where they're constantly throwing... It's Conditionmancer versus Condition... NG, Mesmer, LE, whatever you're talking about. But in PvE, they don't put that many conditions on you, and when you do, you send them back to them immediately to kill them. So you're using conditions as a weapon as opposed to a hindrance. So we're not going to worry about Shrouded removal, and again, we're not going to be in Shroud that often. Putrid Defense. Take less damage from poison foes. Okay, if we look at our number 1 skill, every single time we hit them 3 times with our auto attack, we poison them for 8 seconds. Well, my auto attack is like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4.5 maybe, for an entire, half a second. You're doing like a half-second cooldown plus about a half-second of animation. You're dealing in about 4 seconds, you're putting poison damage on them. So you have poison going indefinitely as long as you're auto attacking. So you're taking less damage from people that you're just regularly attacking. That's good to have. So I went with Putrid Defense, and then the next one, Soul Comprehension. Your passive life force generation from nearby deaths is increased. That helps because you're killing people. And with Epidemic, you're going to be killing a lot of people. So you get more life force, meaning you can be in Shroud more often, and that's just good. Not dealing with minions, so we don't need Necromantic Consumption. Reaper's Protection. When stunned, dazed, knocked back, pulled, knocked down, sunk, floated, inflicted with fear, taunted, or launched, or launched, whenever you're CC'd. Hard CC'd, specifically. Inflict fear on nearby foes. This is really, really good. I use this whenever I go into PvP or World v World. However, this is a PvP build. You get feared occasionally, and taunted occasionally. You get stunned and dazed and whatever. Those are big bosses. It's not a PvE. I wouldn't recommend it, unless you're going Terramancer. If you're going Terramancer, absolutely take this, but you don't really need to worry about it. Plus, with the new Reaper Elite specialization coming out, this wouldn't even apply because, well, it might apply actually close quarters. It might be. It would replace like Curses and Spite maybe. But we'll see. I don't take this in PvP unless you're going in to fight a boss that's known for hard CC. Deadly Strength. Gain power based on your toughness. Power, again, is mostly used for power-based builds, not condition builds. So, rather than worry about this, let me explain the last trait before I explain this one. So, whenever you leave Shroud, you and your minions gain protection. So whenever I leave Shroud, which is when I use to tank, when I'm about to die, I leave and I gain protection, so that just goes along with it. And then, this is for Death Nova, for minions, don't need it. This is for healing. Again, we're not using a healing build. We don't need it, because you just regenerate life when you're in Shroud. It's okay. Your Shroud activates if you would take Lethal Blow. It's okay. We're not dealing about it. This one's interesting. Inflicting a condition on a foe, which is what our entire build is about, grants stacking toughness and reduced incoming condition damage. So if I auto-attack, I'm putting 3, 4, 5 stacks. If I use my 2 and 5, I'm putting even more. I'm instantly, within 5 seconds, I'm up to 10 stacks of this. Maximum stacks is 10. You can see that in the bottom right there. 2% plus 30 toughness per stack. So that's already really good. I'm what, getting 300? Yeah, 300 toughness extra for just inflicting conditions. Meaning I'm not taking damage. Plus, it's minus 2% incoming condition damage, meaning all of the conditions that I'm inflicting on myself with my heal, with my corruption abilities. I'm putting poison on myself. I'm putting bleed and torment on myself. I'm putting self-weakness on myself. It's not really hurting anybody, it doesn't hurt us as much. And then it gives us more time to get them off of us, onto the enemies. So this really, really helps. And which makes this kind of interesting. Whenever you gain toughness, which you gain 300 toughness, power gain doubles while in Shroud. Again, it's okay. I would recommend taking Reaper's Protection on top of that. But what happens? Sorry, power gain doubles while in Shroud. But when you're not in Shroud, the reason why I'm taking this is because this is the one ability that you have on your Scepter Dagger, which is what you're using mostly, that does not have a condition. It does damage per condition. So if you have 25 stacks of bleeding, well, there's no longer like a max cap of 25, but say you have 20 stacks of bleeding, you're doing 8% per that 20, so you're doing it like 160%? Something like that. More damage of 169. Well, just from putting on conditions on a foe, 1, 1, 1, 2, 5, X, 4, I have this on X, 8, 4, Z, that, switch to staff, use 4, blah, blah, blah. I'm putting lots of conditions on them. I'm getting really strong. I'm getting a lot of power. If I use this, it increases my flat damage. So all of these, 1, 2, 4, 5, are very, very good with all of our condition abilities, which means 3 is kind of weak. Like, it feels left out. It's lonely, guys. It's lonely. So by putting this trait on there, just from using 1, 2, 4, 5, and all of our other abilities that put conditions on people, our 3 ability is getting stronger. That's the reason why I take this. Our 3 ability does damage for the amount of conditions. The more conditions, the more toughness, the more toughness, the more power, which means the more damage 3 does. It's a loop, and it works. Just go with me. So that's the reason why I took that. That's all of the specializations explained. Wow, that took a long time. Now it's time to move into the slot skills. So slot skills for the Conditionmancer. Obviously, you're going to want to go with Consume Conditions. Summon Blood Fiend is a minion. Well of Blood is good if you're healing a lot of people, but you want to remove conditions. Plus, it puts self-blinding on you. And the Signet of Vampirism, I don't really know anybody that does use that. Maybe in PvP if you're going with the Vampirism build. Anyway, Consume Conditions is what you're going to go with. So that makes the most sense. This one is kind of up for debate for me. I've always used Well of Suffering on my hybrid build because it's all about putting vulnerability on other people while gaining might. This one is one of my favorites, Well of Power, because it's a stability. It is a stun break, and it's AoE. So, and it converts all of your it converts all of your conditions to boons. So if you're dying, this is a good one to place down. I use this when I'm in PvP. Well of Corruption, again, you're going to be using that underneath enemies. So you don't really, I don't know. I prefer Well of Darkness. The reason being, not only does it blind people, now it chills them and inflicts vulnerability every single time it pulses. Up to 5 people, and it pulses every 1 second for 5 seconds. You get 5 pulses, which means it's like 10 seconds of vulnerability, which is more than enough time to get their health down to 50%, which means that all of your conditions will be doing more and more and more damage because of all of the spite tree. So this is really, really good to start off a fight. If you know that they're going to come and wreck you, you just yell out, Blinding Field going down, and you just start absolutely wrecking them with Well of Darkness. Now, these are the 2 most important things on the build. Blood is Power is absolutely ridiculous. You bleed yourself to grant might to yourself and all your allies, and you bleed your target. So you bleed your target for 42 seconds. That's a really strong bleeding ability. You bleed yourself for 14 seconds, and because of your, here it is, Master of Corruption, you get Self-Torment. So that's a Torment ability that you're putting on yourself, and then you follow that up with a sending your conditions, your bleeding and your torment, to your enemy, and blinding them, and chilling them, and inflicting vulnerability. So this is one of the most important abilities. Plus, with Might, you're getting 153 extra condition damage that you would from that self-torment and self-bleeding on the target. Which is kind of ridiculous. So you're dealing, what? That's like 1,204 damage for just from self-torment, plus another 153 condition damage if they're moving. That's kind of ridiculous. Plus, the vulnerability, which means they're even more vulnerable, meaning they're dealing even more damage. It's kind of ridiculous. This is like the quote-unquote, air quote, burst that you use in the Conditionmancer. You decide, okay, I want this target to die. Blood is power, Locust Swarm, or Deathly Swarm, excuse me, and you just kill them instantly. Moving on to Epidemic. Apply vulnerability on yourself and self-weakness, and spread conditions on a single target to all nearby foes. Well, not all, 5. The radius is 600, the range is 1,200, and it's unblockable. This is the key build. Sorry, the key skill that the Conditionmancer has in PvE. Basically, say there's a big boss, or say there's a huge swarm of enemies, and you say, everyone focus this person. You just control-click, and the target pops up and everybody focuses all their conditions on him. You're focusing all your conditions on one person. You don't have to worry about AoEs, which you're already doing naturally from your 2, your 5, your Z, all of your marks, everything like that. Not your Z, your 7. I have it hotkeyed differently. This sends all of those conditions on one person to 5 enemies around it. And then you can use it again and again, well, 13.5 seconds. So you just keep stacking on one person. If it's a big boss and he summons 5 little maggoty things to come kill you, just focus. You don't even have to worry about it. Just be like, hey, Necro, take care of that. And you just hit 9 and everything dies, or whatever you have that hotkey to. If it's on your mouse, if it's on your, I have it ZXC, blah, blah, blah. It is one of the key things. It increases your damage. Basically, all of the damage that you're putting on one target, you can put on 5 extra targets, meaning you're dealing the same amount of damage, if not more, to 6 different targets at the same time, meaning your DPS... I'm trying to think. It's times 6, but I'm trying to think if it's actually exponential because of what other conditions are on top of them, plus this vulnerability that you have, and whatever vulnerability you have applied. This is the one thing that makes the Conditionmancer so unbelievably powerful. Your conditions, say you have 30,000 DPS. I know it's kind of ridiculous. 30,000 DPS on single target, which the Conditionmancer is not designed for single target. Now you're putting 30,000 on 6 different targets. So overall, you're doing like millions of damage trying to kill somebody. Like, obviously, I'm making numbers up in my head. But the total DPS that you have across all different targets is now multiplied together. It is ridiculous. Epidemic is the most important skill of this entire build. And then finally, Plague. Whenever you go into Plague form, you can apply Bleeding, which is good. Or, this is kind of cool, you can apply Blindness, which applies Chill, which applies Vulnerability. So I spam 2 now. I used to spam 1, 3 for Cripple and Weakness, just because it's cool. But 2 is ridiculous now. Like, you just constantly apply Vulnerability. It is really, really ridiculous. So those are the skill traits. Now it's time to go over the gear. So we're going to go to the Equipment tab. There's my Smexy Char. So first off, you're going to want to go with the Rabid gear right off the bat. I'm in a level 35 area. I'm in where am I? CM. Rabid Dry Bones, Precision, Toughness, Condition Damage, Rabid, 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 Rabid. Oh wait, Power, Vitality, Condition Damage. Whoopsies. Get that switched out. I don't even know what that is. Power, Vitality? Oh, you want Precision, Toughness, Condition Damage. I'll have to. I don't know where my other. Oh no, I had a second Final Rest in my hand. I actually just got rid of. And then Precision, Toughness, Condition Damage. Precision, Toughness, Condition Damage. So everything Rabid. I accidentally just destroyed my 1 good Final Rest. I had 2 Final Rests. Now for the runes. 3 crates and 3 runes of the Afflicted. What it does is it adds condition damage, 10% bleeding duration, meaning all of your duration gets increased, and then 50 condition damage. So you're doing 75 more condition damage and plus 10% bleeding duration. And then with the crate, you're doing 25, 50, and so it just helps. So rather than going into bleeding duration, blah, 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 you're getting the exact same bonus from the Afflicted and the crate. With the weapons, the sigils, I put Sigil of Malice, which is 10% condition duration, all conditions, and inflict bleeding on nearby foes for 10 seconds when you swap to this weapon. That's really helpful because it's AoE, it's in a line. You kind of have to time where you are, but it just adds extra bleeding. That's always nice. Whenever you switch to it for free, you just get a free stack of bleeding. So that one downtime, that 1 second where you're not auto-attacking because you're switching weapons, you're adding bleeding. So you're keeping your uptime on your conditions. And then the sigils, I go with Sigil of Corruption on the Scepter, which every single time you kill someone, you get more and more condition damage. And then Sigil of Accuracy, which increases my critical hit chance. So that's really nice. And then going into the back pieces, I need to get a better back piece. But again, Rabid, and I need to get an upgrade slot. I haven't done that yet. You need to get your Ascended accessories. I don't have any right now. I'm working on that as we speak. This is one of my newer Necromancers. As you guys may or may not know, I have like 3 level 80 Necromancers. I think I just deleted one, so I'm working on this guy because he has my power, or my healing, and my power, and my Rampagers set. So this guy has all the gear from all the other Necromancers that I've had. Even though they were soulbound, I had to go farm it again. So you're going to want to get Rabid, obviously. The exotic for the piece is Bone Fragments of Tequatl. And then Hymn to the Prophets, you want both, or all 3 Ascended rings. I use Ascended Offensive, and I'm thinking about just getting another Ascended utility. But right now I have an exotic with Crest of the Rabid. For these 2, you want Crest of the Rabids. Those are the ones you want. And then with Hymn to the Prophets, obviously you get Precision, an offensive slot. So make sure that you have all Rabid. If you have any question about it, and then Rabid, I need to get better gear here. Everything is Rabid. That's all you need to worry about. Everything is Rabid. And that is gear. Time to go. Let's see. We just did traits. Just did training. We didn't do it, but I mean, obviously that unlocks all your stuff. So yeah, I think that about covers it. If you guys want me to, I can hop into a dungeon or go into PvP and kind of PvE and just kind of demonstrate the build. So yeah, check back with me. I'm going to have an annotation spreading out through these chapters, and yeah, if you guys want to see the demonstration, I will go ahead and show that to you. So here you go. Alright, we are back, and I promised that I would start showing you the demonstration of the build and its powers. So what I'm going to do before we actually start doing that is kind of tell you what this build is not. This build is not a glass cannon. What I mean by that is a glass cannon is designed to do as much damage as humanly possible in such a short amount of time that it kills the target. However, if they don't kill the target in that amount of time, it is most likely that they are going to die. A glass cannon accepts the fact that it is going to die and understands that it is an extremely squishy build. And so what this build is not is a glass cannon. Now what that means is this build is a survivable build. We throw toughness into the trait tree. We throw toughness into all of the gear, except for me because I'm a retard in Final Rest, so that we can survive. Because when you're dead, your DPS effectively drops to 0. No matter what. No excuses. Your DPS is now 0. With this build, if you were to, say, throw on bleeding on a target for 42 seconds, and all your durations are increased by about 10%, your bleeding will go for about 14 seconds, and you can run over and revive somebody in 14 seconds. But if you're dead, your DPS drops to 0. So the key thing about this build is trying to stay survivable, and that's why we added all the toughness. And the same thing holds true for any other game, like Diablo 3, for example. If I were a wizard, and I could do 10 million DPS DPS to one target, and then like that multiplied by however many mobs are surrounding me, I can destroy the freaking Diablo in 2 hits for all I care. But if I go to T6 and get killed by 1 minion and I'm dead, what? I'm not helping anyone. There's no point in having that build. So that's why sustain type builds, damaging condition builds, need to have survivability, and that's why we put all this. And the cool thing is with this trait is whenever we gain toughness, we gain power. Whenever we gain power, we do more damage. So it actually works out really well with the build. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and run and start killing people. So let's just start off by kind of auto-attacking. I'm not going to worry about the burst right now. We're just going to auto-attack. We're going to throw a 2 and a 5 in there. So just so you can kind of see the damage. Now when it hits 50%, there's our spinal shivers. And boom, dead. Right, so kind of simple. Not too bad. Pretty good. What actually makes this build kind of crazy is when you burst. So when I say burst, I don't mean use all your abilities like a glass cannon and try to kill them in a short amount of time. It's stacking conditions, blah, 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 doing your fighting a boss, stacking conditions, and you decide, I want this target to die now. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit Blood is Power. What that will do is it will add 8 stacks of might to yourself. It will bleed the target with 2 stacks of bleeding for 42 seconds. It will bleed yourself and torment yourself. Now, what you do after that is you use Deathly Swarm. So you will send your self-bleeding and your self-torment to your target. You will blind them and chill them and increase their vulnerability. So what you're doing is you're actually, by adding vulnerability, is you are effectively making all of your other conditions that are already on the target do more damage. And so with your might, all of your conditions will do more damage, and then on top of that, now that your power is insane because you've been adding conditions and getting toughness, the last thing you do is add Feast of Corruption on top of that, and with all of your other toughness bonuses, might bonuses, the damage that they're taking, the vulnerability stacks, you will effectively do a crazy amount of damage on top of what you're already doing. And one of the things I like to do is throw down Well of Darkness before I use Blood is Power, because that way, when they're blind, I won't get interrupted with Blood is Power, and they'll constantly keep taking blindness, and it'll constantly keep stacking vulnerability on top of the vulnerability that we give them with Deathly Swarm. So your vulnerability goes up, and your DPS goes up. So let's find another target, and I can kind of demonstrate what I'm doing. And I'm sorry if my voice is changing, my mic is changing, and how tired I am right now. I've been recording for about 4 hours, switching programs, messing with folders, trying to get everything to work out properly. So let's go ahead and start off with this Abomination. We're going to kind of cripple him so his running thing doesn't do very much. I love doing that. Alright, so we're going to hit Blood is Power, Deathly Swarm. I could probably throw this down too. Oh, too late, he's dead. I didn't have time to use Feast of Corruption. Let's wait for the cooldowns and try it again. So, blah, 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 blah. Keep hitting him. Some damage here. Just keep applying conditions. He's below 50% health, he's dead. Darn. I'm gonna have to find a tankier guy to kill, won't I? Where's a noble? He shadow steps, I hate him. There's a noble. There's a giant over there. Sure, we'll fight the giant. Let me explain something before we actually fight the giant. The key thing about this build is Epidemic. Because what Epidemic does is it takes all the conditions that you put on a single target and spreads them to 5 other targets. So your DPS for that one target is now multiplied by all the other targets, meaning you're doing an insane amount of damage. Like, you can do 65,000 damage across 6 targets with Epidemic. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit Blood is Power, followed by Deathly Swarm, followed by, well, you're going to hit Well of Darkness, Blood is Power, Deathly Swarm, followed by Feast of Corruption. Then you're going to use Epidemic. You can even use Epidemic before Feast of Corruption. But the thing is, whenever you use Epidemic or Heal, most likely your Deathly Swarm will be down because you used it with Blood is Power. So you switch to your Staff and use Putrid Bark, which sends the conditions that Epidemic and Heal gives you to your target. So Epidemic, Heal, which would move those conditions and any of those conditions, whatever order you want to do it in. Whenever you use your Heal or your Epidemic, you're going to switch to your Staff and use Putrid Bark, unless Deathly Swarm is up. In that case, Blood is Power is most likely up, and you'll be using it with Deathly Swarm. So, yeah, let's go ahead and head in and fight this giant. Now, he does summon grubs, so when he does pop his grubs up, we're going to use Epidemic. And you can see we don't even have to focus the grubs, we don't have to worry about them. Our AoEs will take care of them. And all we have to do is focus all of our conditions on top of this guy. We're going to keep putting conditions on him. We're going to go Well of Darkness, Blood is Power. See his vulnerability stacks are up to 18. Boom. Tons of damage. He summoned his grubs. We're going to use Epidemic. Let's keep attacking here. He missed. Alright, F4. Oh, sorry, not F4. Yeah, tilde. To switch my weapons, because that's what I moved it to. And you can see the grub's already dead. I haven't even hit them yet. Alright, so we're going to use one more Well of Mark of Blood, so that way we get some regen if we're in range, which we weren't. And there we go. Some more damage. And you can see we're just absolutely wrecking this guy. The amount of bleeding we have on the target. We're taking no problems. And he's already summoned grubs, so we're going to use Epidemic. Not a single problem fighting this guy. Our DPS is just too high. Bada boom, he's down. Get out of here. You see, we never even hit the grubs, so we killed 2 rounds of grubs without ever even touching them. And that is the power this build has. It is kind of ridiculous, so keep in mind, I don't have any Ascended gear here. This is the wrong type weapon class, I guess you could say. And I'm still having no problems at all. Survivability is insanely high. The neat thing about this build is, for example, when I'm dungeon running, I go, let's say we go Citadel of Flames, and I don't know what is killing me here. Let's say we go Citadel of Flames, and the Path 1 final champion boss is the Flame Effigy, I believe, or the champion Flame Effigy. I was actually able to beat him in a faster time with this character than with my Power Necromancer. The reason being is because with the Power Necromancer, you throw down everything you've got in a short amount of time and do a lot of damage. Huge amounts of damage. I'm not denying that. It's very effective. But he just out-tank it. Out-tanks it. Champions just out-tank power builds. And so, the cool thing about this build is the longer you are in a fight, the more damage you continue to do. When you hit so you keep on adding more conditions until eventually you hit the 50% mark. When you hit the 50% mark, more and more conditions start applying and doing more damage. The higher stacks your toughness are, the higher stacks your might will be. And you just the longer you're in a fight, the more damage you'll be doing over time. Which means, with the Flame Effigy, I was able to kill him faster. Not because I was doing more damage in a short amount of time, but because I was doing more damage in a longer period of time. As opposed to the Powermancer, where you just kind of run out of abilities and realize, oh crap, I'm dead. So yeah, I think that's it for this build. If you like the build, go ahead and leave me a comment saying how much you love it, or how much you hate it, or see what success you've had with it. Tell me if you get far in, not rifts are in Diablo 3, whatever those things are. Yeah, I would not recommend using it in World v World, although I have used it in PvP before and I had no problems. I just had to switch out some of the abilities. And if you guys want me to, I'll make a build of that. Yeah, if you guys want me to make a build of anything else, feel free to let me know, and I will accept your requests, as it were. Preferably Necro. Necro is my main class. Yeah, like I said, if you guys liked the video and appreciate the 4 or 5 hours I put into making, probably 6, and editing this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, give my channel some love, and yeah, I will see you all in the next video. Peace.